In panic, he looked at his feet and saw two furry paws. He blinked and then reached up to feel his furry face. It was then his elbow brushed against his bushy tail, and it suddenly dawned on him that he had been turned into a squirrel. He whirled around and glared at Lolita.
What the? Change me back now!
He squeaked. The dragoness's eyes danced with laughter as she looked down at the little red tree squirrel.
It's not funny! Change me back!
Or if you'll do what? She asked. The clove's beady black eyes went wide and he hopped about, chattering as he started hurling small twigs and pebbles at her. With a roll of her eyes and a blast of her nostrils, she sent the irate squirrel somersaulting over backwards. Are you finished? She asked.
I want to close your eyes!
The clove roared, but it only came out as a high-pitched squeak. But just when she had caught her breath and thinking she had won, she looked up to see that insane rodent, that lunatic squirrel, covered in slime with leaves and grass sticking to its fur, come running at her. Lolita's eyes went wide with terror and disbelief. What kind of demon squirrel had she made? Enough! Enough! She cried. I'll change you back. I said enough! At last, the savage little squirrel stopped in his tracks and sat back on his haunches and glared up at her with his beady little eyes. The dragoness breathed heavily and hung her head, trying to catch her breath as she took a few more paces back as a precaution. Okay, just let me breathe a little. Let me focus, all right? Okay? The angry little squirrel, however, didn't so much as blink. Just stand over there by the dead tree branch. I'll be there in a moment. I promise, Lolita instructed, gesturing with a swift swish of her tail. The squirrel ripped off a leaf sticking on his head and stiffly marched back over to the branch. Lolita's blue eyes sparkled with mischief, and she smirked at the squirrel, glared up at her impatiently from underneath the branch. Finally, she raised her hand to the white stone at the base of her neck and gently pressed her claws to it. Wet, sticky, and miserable, the clove braced himself, waiting for the change. The first thing he was going to do was find a lake and wash the stinking filth off. However, this time the experience was different. After he saw the flash and shielded his eyes from the bright light, he didn't feel different at all. When the clove looked up, he saw the dragoness's big, toothy grin leering at him through the rows of a steel cage where the tree branch had once been. Lolita smirked when she saw the squirrel's reaction of shock and betrayal. Instead of turning him back, she had transformed the tree branch into a small bird cage, complete with a swinging perch. Did you honestly think you could outsmart me? She chuckled, thrumming happily as she sauntered over to the cage. The clove's tiny claws gripped the pointed twig in his hand, and he turned his head, examining the cage. His beady eyes shifted and shot the dragoness a murderous glance as she hovered over him. Lolita shook her head in astonishment. The little troll just didn't give up. Really, Le Clove? Even if you did get out, only I can change you back, so... Ouch! The moment she had gotten too close to the cage, Le Clove had rammed the stick up her nostril.
I'll just find another hag.
You monster! She growled and hastily brushed the twig out of her nostril. Do you have any idea what's at stake? Do you know what you have done?
Give me back my stick. I'm gonna tickle your brain till you die from it.
Le Clove shouted, and he began frantically running about the cage, rattling the bars and chattering at the top of his lungs.